this one.
Hi, Iya. Oh,
Hello, how are you?
good. How are you?
Good.
I have been missing y'all.
Miss you too. Yep. Okay. I was gonna try and play some music, but I think I'm all thumbs today. I'm gonna have to admit my shortcomings.
Is all right.
How are you doing?
I'm good. I am preparing for a panel at 7:30. But yeah, other than that, I'm good. I think I'm just trying to ground myself in what I'll be sharing. So other than that, I'm good.
Yeah, yeah. How's our little one?
Good. She'll probably pop in any minute now. How you feeling?
Yeah, I'm feeling good. I'm a little chilly. We have a little cold front up here, which has not been fun. Hey, Joey.
Yeah, I just survived the
Yeah, it's been a
motorcycle ride.
nice chill.
I was saying I just survived
Oh,
the
you a motorcycle?
in the rain. Albeit it wasn't
Oh,
so bad.
wow.
It's like a light rain, but rain hurts when you're going against it. So I got to
I
experience that.
can. Oh, yeah. I can definitely see that.
Yeah.
Definitely see that. Yeah, I've only rode on the back of a motorcycle a few times. Uh, I think I effectively kind of dismounted my husband for the last time. I was like, I can't do this anymore. I can't watch you. He had a bad accident. We were dating. This was years and years ago, and so he hasn't ridden actually much at all since. But I think the last time I rode on a motorcycle was on a date we had. I'm pretty sure it was. Had to have been. But that was so long ago. That was like literally over 20 years ago.
Still cool and
Yeah.
thrilling. I get the excitement, but I don't think I'll ever be a bike owner.
Yeah, yeah. I know someone who actually is the president of a bike club here in the Chicago area. The
Wow.
Rough Riders, I think they are. Yeah, sister. Yeah, she's very very committed to that community.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Good evening, everyone. Hello. Eastside and I are we're in the
Hello.
car, so we'll be home shortly. So we're off camera.
Oh, okay.
We'll be
No
home shortly.
problem.
So hope everyone's doing well.
All right. Yes, doing well. Hope you all are doing well.
Trying. Hey, yeah.
Hello, how are you?
Good. How are you?
That's good. I'm good. Just I was mentioning a little chilled. This today is, such a nice chilly day.
Right. Yeah. Very much so.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Surprise, surprise.
Right? Goodness gracious, not expected at all.
Definitely not.
Mm, yeah. Yeah, we know a couple of folks let me know they weren't going to be able to make it today. So we may get started in a few minutes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this will be actually next Friday I will not be holding class and I'm gonna see if we can get a substitute. I'm gonna be in New York, working on some things. And the following Friday, we should be okay, but it's gonna be a little spotty in June and July because there's so much stuff happening. A lot of folks are getting back to a lot of things that have either been on hold for over a year or in some cases, or many months are getting back online now spiritually. So it's going to be a lot of activity in terms of different ceremonies and stuff happening this summer. And Fridays are normally the day that a lot of stuff gets started. So so that's going to mean my absence from class for some Fridays over the summer. Yeah, so I know that, like I said, next Friday for sure I'll be in New York and Brooklyn, and then some Fridays in July I will not be available. The last Friday in June I will definitely not be available either because there's going to be an initiation that weekend. Um, and then there's going to be some activities for Kiara, since you're in Atlanta. You're more than welcome if you have the opportunity to come up to Chicago. There's going to be there's going to be a drum till about Tala over the summer that you may well enjoy. And we're also going to do a sunrise ceremony to Yemanjah this summer. So if you have opportunity to come on down, you're more than welcome to come. And these are family-friendly activities. So if you and your daughter want to come, you're more than welcome to, and I'll give you more information if you're interested.
For sure. Thank you.
Okay, good. Yep, you're welcome. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and share the screen. There we go. Okay.
Yeah, when are you leaving Brooklyn?
Monday, early Monday morning on the 7th.
Oh, because I'll be in Manhattan. I'm going in on Sunday. And then I'm coming back around and go back to Atlanta on the 30th.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna, yeah, Sunday we're gonna be, during the day, maybe kind of chill. But the afternoon, evening is gonna be fairly busy.
Okay.
So let me know. See, hopefully be able to, have breakfast or something.
Okay, I like that.
Okay, cool. Very cool. All right. Today we're going to be talking about Shango. Kawo Kabi Sile Shango. As I've told some of you, whenever we mention Shango, we say Kawo Kabi Sile. We lift our buttocks either side to side, or we, get up on our hunches for Shango as acknowledgement of his lordship and his rulership. So I try to make a note to emphasize that. So today we're going to do as usual, talk about some things in literature with Shango, and talk about how we work with Shango. And we're going to share some patakis. We maybe get into some songs if we have time. We'll see. So Shango. So much we can say about Shango. So much, but we're going to see how far we can get today. Although Shango is not my father in Orisha, Shango's always been very supportive of me and very, very much present for me in lots of different ways. So Shango is a very, one of those near and dear to my heart kind of Orisha. Because of my relationship with the drum and through my spiritual journey and his role with the drum. It's always I always feel very connected to Shango. So the first thing we as I mentioned, acknowledge Shango is as king of our home. That's what Kabi Sile literally means, king of our home. It acknowledges his role as indisputable king or the indisputable ruler, one that we don't question that he rules. We don't question that he has a role in rulership. And so we acknowledge that when we're, greeting him in our thrones, or we're greeting him at a bimbe. We acknowledge that he is indisputably the one who we acknowledge as one who earned his right to be ruler and earned his right to be acknowledged as a great ruler. And we talked a little bit about his role as being the last week Onile Inya, which is the owner of the House of Fire. So in this case, he is known for being able to wield fire. If anyone has ever seen any mount of Shango, particular or footage of any mounts of Shango, one of the things that's always acknowledged is that mounts of Shango can literally, blow fire from their mouths, or be able to handle fire with ease without feeling burned or not feeling bothered in any way. There's numerous accounts of this dating back hundreds of years of mounts of Shango literally playing with fire, literally. And there's sayings that when Shango plays, Shango's playing is dangerous. Lots of different turns and puns on this in some of his oriki, or some of his titles, or some of the ways we refer to Shango, is that he literally can play with fire. And that's not something that anyone can do, but Shango can literally play with fire. As I mentioned before, he's Olubata, owner of the drum, owner of dance. So Shango has always been known as a great showman, a great entertainer, or a great dancer. Whenever Shango's children mount, they normally have a certain finesse, and even his dance itself, it's very nuanced and very compared. It's not just like a two-step. It's not just like you go back and forth like most of the Orisha dances. It's pretty. You may have some embellishment that either connects with either femininity or masculinity in some way, but with Shango's dance, it's actually a fairly intricate dance. You're literally, the gesture is literally pulling down thunder and switching feet while you're pulling down thunder at the same time, either in a slow motion or a faster motion. So his dance is considered to be a dance that, when it's performed well, looks like someone who has finesse, who has a certain very kind of presence. So when sorry, Dasha, she was probably there for a minute. So when Shango's children dance for him, there's a certain finesse and command that comes with that form of dance. And of course, he is the owner of the drums. Normally, if someone has a reading in certain Odu or certain signs, that would be literally an acknowledgement that they have to do a drum, and primarily it would be for Shango. Shango is the one that normally uses the drums to reestablish balance in the home, to reestablish levity even, or to chase away negativity, or to bring the presence of Shango into the home, or to bring the support of Shango into the home. You can do that through drumming. If someone has offended Shango, one of the part of the process of working with Shango to address that offense may be through a drum. So even if it's another Orisha, even if the Orisha is Oshun or Yemanja or Legba or another Orisha, and it's called for the drum to be involved, there is in some way connection to Shango, because Shango owns all drums. Even though he's the main drum we talk about that Shango owns is the bata, which is the cylindrical two-headed drum that's played with hands or with sticks. Um, Shango owns all drums because he dances to all drums. So that is a pretty important and prominent role that he plays. I mentioned before, Ararara, he is the owner of thunder, owner of that sound we hear before, after lightning strikes, we hear thunder. And that's again the association with him and Oya, that they both work together. Another, I mentioned last week also, the Pataki where Oya stole lightning from him. And so his relationship with Osine, which is the Orisha of medicines or the Orisha of herbs, Osine has a very special relationship with Shango in that he has always shared his secrets with Shango around medicines and around herbs, and Shango has always made use of them for himself. So there's this divine relationship with them, and this is one of his Oriki is Olueku Oshe Osine, which basically means that acknowledges this special relationship he has with Osine. And which gives him a certain status amongst the Orisha. Did I finish all of them? Oh, and finally, he is for those who do not know, he was a living king in Oyo. He was considered the fourth Alafin of Oyo. And his rulership was, I believe it was 4 BC. So his rulership goes back thousands of years in Oyo. And so when he died, he became a deified ancestor. Oops, sorry about that. So working with Shango, because Shango was a great ruler, he spoke with authority, and he spoke with clarity and authority, and was known to have to use his ability to speak as a statesman. He used that authority to unite kingdoms. My research of Shango, that several books that I have about Shango, talks about how he literally through his leadership assembled several kingdoms and assembled them under the Oyo kingdom, which he ruled over for 7 years. And when he did that, he actually brought traditions, cultural traditions, religious traditions, spiritual traditions under this Oyo empire, and integrated them and built up this very sophisticated and well-run empire that was known for having many different rules of engagement that other kingdoms could recognize, because they were so well integrated into what Shango established for Oyo. So that's one side of Shango. There are also many, and so he used his power of the tongue to literally transform the lives of and some of those traditions that he established in Oyo, all those hundreds of years ago, thousands of years ago, have since been maintained even since then. So what he established has been kept by Alafins who have ruled after Shango ever since. So he literally used his power of authority and rulership to build this really great kingdom that not only established itself in Oyo, but if you think about it, established itself in the Americas through the worship of Shango, because the initiation process that is used in Lukumi and used in Candomblé and Shango Baptist and other religious traditions were based in many, for the most part, on the rulership that Shango established for those that were the Oyo people of Oyo went and were enslaved and went established initiation traditions that were out of the Oyo kingdom's traditions. So so there's a lot of that's why Shango is so broadly worshipped all over the world, and is one of the most popular Orishas is because he used with his authority a way to assemble traditions that have now been a part of our spiritual traditions as descendants of Shango in the way we worship and practice the tradition. And and so that's one part of the power of the tongue that is really a positive part of what Shango represents. And so when we think about what that means for us, that if we understood the power of the way we speak, if we understood the power of what we have in our power to use language and to use our intelligence with our language in proper comportment, we can really transform worlds. We can transform our own lives. We can really literally transform the world as we know it. And so that's part of the aspect of Shango that's really important, that in terms of how we work with him, we emphasize our ability to, we talk about speaking things into existence. When we talk about how we speak good fortune on ourselves and good fortune on other people versus negative fortune on ourselves or other people. All of that is a part of how Shango can manifest as a way of teaching us how to use our power of our tongues. And on the flip side of that, Shango also used the power of his tongue. In many patekis, there are also lessons that are to be learned from the times when Shango used his power and authority to overstep, or his tempestuous nature, which he is widely known for having a very explosive nature. When he used that explosive nature to literally just, that ended up being a part of destruction. And we also see that in how he used some of the medicines he was given, in which we'll talk about with the Pataki, about how he used those medicines and they ended up being a power of destruction and not as a power of good. So so and that power literally came from his mouth. So with Shango, how we use language, how we communicate, how we use, how our thoughts and mindset and our intentions feed and build into how that our tongue expresses, that is super important. And so many of the Odus associated with Shango specifically, like Ejila, is a very, very strongly connected Odu with Shango. Irosun is another very strongly connected Odu with Shango. When we deal with those Odu, we oftentimes have to deal with being careful how we let our temperament potentially override or overrule our thinking. And then our thoughts and actions, especially how we speak, manifesting that negatively in the world. So Shango oftentimes will be the Orisha that comes to warn us not about that danger, about the danger of having explosive temper and an explosive tongue and an explosive nature. And oftentimes will introduce ways for us to consider how to cool that nature and cool those temperaments so that we can actually live in balance. Because for the Yoruba, anything that is bona, which is Gbona, bona, is considered hot, right? And so Shango is a bona Orisha, right? He is a Orisha that has, in some ways, a hot nature. but anything that is tutu is cool. And so when there's imbalance in terms of too much of that hot nature, there are things that are introduced to support us so that we have a more cool nature and have a more balanced life, because it's difficult to go through life when you're always, when you're popping off all the time and not thinking, or moving so fast in life that you're running hot all the time, and you're not taking time to sit back, step back, get off that firing line that we put ourselves on in life, and think about how we should move forward in a cooler way. So that's important to keep in mind when working with Shango. Shango's lessons around that, and the loss and the grave losses that Shango incurred for that, we oftentimes are instructed how not to go down those paths. So in speaking to that also, this is just something I think about personally with Shango. A lot of the patakis that I've known of Shango's teachings deal with honor, like really deal with honor. What kind of person do we want to be? What kind of, how do people see us in the world? What kind of status do we have in terms of, not in terms of like elevated status, in terms of how high ranking we are, although that does, of course, speak with Shango since he was a ruler. But how do people see our character? How do people see how we carry ourselves? How do people see how we respond to situations? How do people understand our nature to be? Honor is a personal thing, but honor is also very much how people see us, right? If people see us as dishonorable, then that is something that we carry, and that's something that, for Shango, how people saw him as a ruler was very important, right? Because having people who followed him and followed his dictates, and the great structures that he put together, they followed him because they felt that he was an honorable, that what he was doing was worthy of their consideration, and that they were honorable deeds. But once he destroyed that, or once he undermined that, and there are lots of patakis that talks about how that happened, then that undermined his ability to actually rule, and that changed everything for Shango. And so a lot of Odu that Shango deal with war, because he was a general. Some of the research I've read points to the fact that Shango was the Orisha that was, or the first general of the Alafins to use a cavalry in battle. So he was known for being able to, although I think it was Aramian who was the first to bring mounted horses to the kingdom of Oyo from Benin, but he was the first Orisha, or the first general, the first Alafin to assemble a cavalry to an opposing army and to win in battle. So that was considered a great feat. So war is a big part of what we deal with when we deal with Shango. Everything that we learn about war is, we all the politics involved with it, because he conquered many kingdoms. He conquered many kingdoms. So war was political. So he was able to grow his kingdom and to enact policies that reflect his vision of the world, because of his ability to be a great warrior. But it was also personal, because he often had to manage his own nature and explosive nature, and the wars he created for himself, and combat that in order to rule peacefully. So when we think about for ourselves, questioning for ourselves, how do we deal with conflict? How do we deal with things that we don't like? How do we deal with problems that come up? Um, how do we create enemies in our lives? How do we deal with that? How do we deal with people who are enemies against us that we don't feel that we earned? How do we deal with that? So with Shango, oftentimes he makes us question. There are a lot of all the Odu that deal with Shango talk about the warrior that never sleeps. So someone who feels that they always have the world against them because they have to contend with all of these forces that are trying to topple them or dominate them or usurp the power that they have. That person can never rest. They can never rest. And so Shango oftentimes encourages us to put down that armor um, and not incur battles that we don't have to fight, because the more we're at war all the time, the less we have to contemplate, to be cool headed. Someone who's at war all the time has to be bona. They have to be hot. There's no coolness in the war field, right? In the battlefield, right? So oftentimes there's a warning from Shango to be careful to be careful with the idea of always being at war all the time and creating ideas in your mind about always feeling like that people are against you and that you have to defend yourself against them or that this or that all the time, because that energy itself um, has a cost that we pay, and that cost is oftentimes swift. Um, and so I asked the question, what kind of general are you? If you are someone who is at war, how do you rule? How do you deal with it? How do you figure out a way to get off the battlefield? And because ultimately that should be the goal. And Shango oftentimes comes to us to remind us that the war that we're fighting oftentimes is costing us more to stay in it than we would lose if we walked away. So, and there are plenty of Pachaki that talk about that with Shango. Plenty, 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 plenty. So these are some of the ways that I find Shango shows up in terms of the idea of war. And when we talk about Shango as the Lord of Dance, or the one who, the Lord of Drums, Shango also shows up to talk to us about when our nature is so either what's the word? When our nature is so either serious or kind of rigid, or overly rigid or overly serious with no chill, or overly stern with no soft edges to it a little bit. Shango oftentimes will come in and tell someone, you need to enjoy life. You need to chill out. You need to have more opportunities to laugh, to dance, to sing, to enjoy music, to have good times. They're old dudes that I've given to people that or honestly, even sometimes that I've seen for myself, where you're told, have people over your home, even if it's 2 or 3 people, just to enjoy, company with people, laugh, have some gaiety, have some levity in your home, to bring a lightness to the atmosphere. Things are so routine or so mundane or so serious because you're always working so hard, when you don't have a chance to kind of relax, give yourself a time to enjoy the fruits of your labor. So Shango is the one, as I mentioned before, that Shango will be the one to ask for a drum, or Odu that's associated with Shango may be asking for a drum. Um, Actually, I mentioned Ejila, I think Ejila and some others, yeah, but ask for the drum. Um, this is a way that Shango is working with us when he asks for that, is to help us have an opportunity to introduce something that's introducing happiness, levity, laughter, joy, praise, um, um, gratitude, even expressions of gratitude, expressions of, and to acknowledge accomplishments too. Um, I often find when I have this come up for people with readings, oftentimes there's this nature of people who work so hard all the time. In this particular situation where I've had this come up with people, they work so hard all the time that they don't stop to think, what have I actually accomplished? What am I doing? What is all of this for? Why am I working so hard? So oftentimes Shango will say, you've done so much, actually accomplished a lot, and you should celebrate that. And so give yourself a chance to celebrate that. Or Shango, in one case, I read somebody who had never been in a religion before, and a Shango wants them to give a drum. Wouldn't close without it. Wouldn't close the reading without asking for a drum. So because that person had been working so hard for so many years and had really felt little appreciated. So Shango wanted to show them that they should appreciate themselves, even when others didn't really see them for who they were or what they were about. So Shango said, you celebrate yourself. So Shango will come and work with us to make sure that we celebrate our accomplishments in life so that we can actually um, see some end to all of the work that we do, so that we can either shoot for other stars or acknowledge when we have closure to something that we've been working toward. Um, so and finally, in terms of how he works with us in terms of leadership, this comes up a lot with Shango. Leadership. How do we lead? How do we rule? And I have to say this too. Unfortunately, when this issue or topic comes up with Shango of rulership or leading, there's normally some tensions around a person struggling with leadership, either struggling with how to share power properly, how to use coolness and not to overexert their power through either really kind of um, negative actions or behaviors or speech, um, or manipulation. So oftentimes there's a real, when this comes up, there's some concerns with how someone is actually leading a charge, that they have some things to learn about how to do so properly and with integrity, so that that they don't dishonor the work that's being done or dishonor those who are impacted by what they're doing. That's something that comes up a lot when it comes to leadership with Shango. And again, because Shango had to, in many Pataki, faced many challenges with growth himself, with learning how not to abuse power. So Shango is the one who really shows up when there's a concern with a person, or concern with someone who is going to lead or leading an effort, that should learn very soon and very often that there are real dangers in abusing power, and real dangers in abusing their privilege to lead a group or a person, or even if it's the family. It could be someone who's a matriarch in the family. It could be someone who's a CEO. It could be, as I've seen all these situations, it could be a CEO. It could be a matriarch in the family, a patriarch in the family. It could be someone who is a healer in the community, or someone who wants to be a healer in the community. I've seen all of these instances where these questions come up. So leadership can be on this very broader scale, or it could be just the people in your life who look to you for look to you for a particular type of guidance. So Shango oftentimes ensures us that if we lead with integrity and we lead with proper comportment, that will be very highly prized by Shango, and Shango will support that person. But I think the key there is acknowledging where our shortcomings are, acknowledging where we have growth needs, because leadership for anyone is not easy. It may come more naturally to some than others, but it's never easy. Shango oftentimes is the one who observes very closely the actions of people who are, in a position to lead other people. Covered a lot so far. I want to make sure that before I keep talking, there are any other questions of anything. Yeah, Ross?
Why why isn't Shango a warrior in Lukumi?
Oh, I don't think that that's divorced from Shango. I definitely think Shango is considered a warrior. I think he is not considered a warrior like a Legba or Ogun, because he is not a primordial Orisha.
Oh,
They are primordial. They were here with us when the world began. Shango was not. Shango was not a part of the creation of the world, because Shango didn't exist at that point. At least not, he didn't. He's a historical figure, so his role as a warrior really he is considered a warrior king. Like even like some roles of Obatala that are warrior, like a warrior roles of Obatala. So in that sense, he's considered a warrior king. But I think the emphasis with Shango is more with his role as the fourth Alafin, as a king who ruled and conquered many kingdoms. So it's a subtle difference, but I think the real main difference is that the fact that they are primordial entities compared to Shango.
okay. I was always confused by that. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
So a Bible that I was working with before was telling me a lot about the correspondence between Shango and the number 12. Is there like any? Could you just talk about that a little bit? His numbers and like if there is any relevance with him in 12.
Shango's sacred number for their Odu, their numbers in Odu versus the numbers that are in some ways are correlated with the numbers of the Orisha. But even in Shango's case, his number, we consider his number to be 6. The number 12 is a number that's aligned with Shango. But when you deal with Shango in terms of working with Shango energetically, the first number, the primary number we work with Shango is 6. He's also one of the primary Orisha of the Odu Obara, which is 6. He's also an Orisha that's very strongly associated with the Odu Ejila Shebora, which is the 12th Odu. So I wouldn't say that he is only affiliated with 12, although there are very few Orisha compared to that have the importance in Ejila that Shango has. Shango is the Orisha for Ejila. Period. But we work with Shango primarily through the number 6 and 12 as well, but that's secret sauce kind of stuff I'm not going to get into. But I will say that the number 6, and for our purposes, is like when we make offerings to Shango, I often tell people to bring 6 of something, 6 apples, That type of thing. You can, make six of a thing to Shango or a multiple of six, but we start with the number six.
Okay, thank you. One more question.
Mhm.
So I've also like heard about him in pomegranates as well. Is it possible we could talk about that?
Pomegranates are primarily associated with Obatala in our practice, not with Shango. Although there are some things with pomegranates and Shango, but really it's Obatala.
Okay, thank you. I wouldn't have thought about Obatala, but thank you.
Yeah, there's a story behind that, but yes, Obatala primarily.
Hello, Ia. I have a
Hello,
question.
how are you?
I'm blessed. Happy to be here.
Good.
Um, so I've heard that Shango is I guess so the word that the woman used was sorcerer. She said that very
Mhm.
specifically and was like she said it with her chest. And like she explained it, but the way she explained it, it didn't really resonate with me. But I wanted to pose that to you and see what you think of that and see if you could speak to that in any way.
I'm going to throw that back at you, actually, Makeba, and ask you what you think of that. Because again, I know that there's a contest, the reason why you're asking the question. So I'm gonna throw it back at you and ask you why you asked that question.
I don't know. Yeah, I think because like when it comes to like for me anyway, I'm not gonna speak for anybody else. I haven't heard of Shango being seen as like one of the Orisha that's like kind of more spiritual or ethereal, so to speak. Like in
Mhm.
my interactions with Shango, it's always he's more physical and more like material based. So like
Mhm.
him being a sorcerer to me, like that it's kind of a different perspective. And granted, all the Orisha have like multiple paths and everything. So like just me hearing that, oh, Shango is a sorcerer, that's like, okay, that's interesting. Let's rock with it. Let's see what's there. But in terms of what's actually there, I don't know.
Well, I'll answer that the best way I can. That Shango, I mentioned in the beginning that he has a very strong and very personal relationship with Osai. He and to the point where he is considered like the one that Osai gives medicines to, right? And he's used those medicines to create magic for himself, right? Magic that shows himself to have certain special powers, certain special capacity, and distinct capacity compared to others, right? So he's used that to wield fire, he's used it to wield thunder, to attempt it to wield lightning, but Oya said, nah, that's mine, homie, right? So he has used his a relationship with Osine to support himself and to support his rulership, right? So I would say to the extent that his relationship with the god of herbs and herbal magic is very strong, that he is synonymous with it to the point where he has a Riki that speak directly to it, that he has a specific relationship with the ability to make magic. So I would say that's probably where it comes from, but and how he uses it for himself to advance his causes, right? And he has actually gotten some blowback from that. There's Patahita talk about that, where he oversteps, where he uses his explosive nature and his explosive and his unstable temperament to use things that he if he can harness it, if he can harness his energy, his thoughts, his balance, his ability to achieve balance with it, that he could achieve more, but it always is stopped short because his temperament is so hot. So I think sorcerer is kind of attempting to get at that, because a sorcerer is someone who can wield and manipulate things But sorcery has a negative connotation too, right? Which is why I think you're kind of struggling with it, right? And I think it speaks to this imbalance Shango has with wielding things because his temperament is not in balance to help him to carry it through to any positive outcome. So sorcery implies, I think, unfinished business, in my opinion. Because if the outcome can go one way good or one way bad, and most times, if you're sorcering, is not always good. So I think the struggle that Shango has with balancing his temperament, which is very hot, with this idea of being attracted to and wielding magic, makes for a bad combination for him. Some things had lasted longer than others. It helped him to become Lord of Thunder. So yes, it does have that connotation. It has helped him to be a deputy to Olodumare as a deified ancestor, that Olodumare calls on Shango to rain down Armageddon from heaven if Olodumare is offended. So there's a Pataki and Odu that talks about Olodumare literally being so upset with the affairs that are happening on earth. I forgot the Odu. I think it's there's a couple of Odu that speak to it, but I want to say it's Irosun D or Odosun Obata, where he's so, it's probably Irosun Obata, where he's so upset with how humankind was carrying on and being careless and frivolous and poor caretakers of the earth, that he literally threatened to have Shango rain Armageddon down to quell the horrible temperament and horrible acts and deeds of humankind. That's why when that sign comes down, from either from the casting of Ifa by the Pavalawo, it's considered like and this comes in a negative connotation, it's considered like a really bad sign because it's literally saying Olodumare is keeping Shango, he's like, okay, Shango, hold on, if humanity can show me that they don't deserve this, then that they don't need me to restore balance because things are so out of balance, then please excuse the noise. Then we will then hold off. But this is a sign that literally says that Shango is literally waiting from Olodumare to use his capacity to do that. And you have to connect that with his capacity to wield medicines and to wield very powerful medicines, right? So Shango has been able to use this for good, this ability to wield powerful medicines and wield powerful energy for good, and also, or to ensure some balance, and also to create instability and imbalance. So it goes either way. So it's a mixed bag. I hope that answers your question.
It did. Thank you.
Yep, sitting already, Katie. Sitting already, and that's something that when someone gets that in an ODU, it means that they really got to clean up their act. Like literally, it's like you have to clean up your act. You have nowhere to go with the crap you're doing. It's ODU is speaking to it. You got to clean up your act. So that's an ODU that you really don't want to have come without some stern warnings from Shango. But again, it's Shango being instructive, right? He's using all of the tensions, all of the conflicts, all of the quagmires that Shango experienced and lived through or dealt out to instruct us now, right? That's half the point to all of this is that instruction. Good questions. Sorry for the noise, as I said. I want to give y'all a chance to ask some more questions. I just said another pataki I didn't write down. I just mentioned another pataki.
I have a question. I hope it makes sense. But I'm thinking about to the point of the imbalance of hotness that you're speaking to. What cools Shango down? Is that part of the medicine that Osine provides? Or what helps to bring the balance? But I'm thinking specifically the coolness.
That is a good question. So in our case, it's a commitment to change our behavior. I would say that. But for Shango, I think, well, Obatala has a lot to do with supporting and introducing coolness to him. One of the things when he integrated the kingdoms is that he also placated the people of Obatala when he integrated the kingdoms, and so like through his actions and rulership, he sought to create that balance. So one of the, as I've read and researched, one of the kingdoms of that were followers of Obatala that he helped to integrate into his kingdom were the people who cared for children who had infirmities or had deformities or infirmities, right? So all those children are under the special protection of Obatala. So when he took on favor and support of all the mothers and children who had problems of either being deaf, having mental capacity issues, physical infirmities, all of that. He he and he engendered the favor of Obatala. So there's this way that Shango, through his rulership and integration of the kingdoms during his time, that he literally, in some ways, secured some of that balance from the imbalances that we see in some of his character and some of the stories that we find out about. But for us, it's really about hearing the messages that we receive from Shango through a reading, um, acknowledging what we're being told, which is a truth that we're being told. Which I want to say also, I didn't write this down here, but I have to say that one thing that Shango really, really, really stands to address oftentimes is truth. That's like for Shango, that's the big deal. So oftentimes Shango will address people who either have difficulties facing their own truths or difficulties with when faced with telling truths that they are oftentimes liars, right? So like doing like that kind of thing, like if someone is a habitual liar, Shango will oftentimes show up and say, that's creating so many imbalances for you, and that needs to be corrected. If someone has difficulty with being either very highly manipulative or highly advantageous over other people in ways that are creating imbalances and hurt and inflicting harm, Shango comes to the defense of the person that is being harmed and says, look, you need to chill out. Another thing about Shango, Shango is a great defender of women. In Shango's kingdom, as a Lafine, all of the titles that were held in high regard in his kingdom were held by women. The Ayabas, so all of the women who were titled were entrusted with everything sacred that was connected to his rulership. And there's a Riki that says, Shango rules over everything but for women. So that can be interpreted many different ways. You know? So because of Shango's indebtedness to entrusting women to sacred implements that supported his rulership, And those women were given titles of authority to support everything from the crown that he wore on his head to the Egungun worship of the previous Alafins. Women were in charge of that. To braiding of his hair, to the being in charge of initiates. There were all these roles that women were in his kingdom were titled to hold, that that he has an indebtedness to women because of those women's roles as titled authority figures in his kingdom, and that rulership, and that supports him to be defenders of all women. So someone who offends a woman, abuses a woman, offends Shango. So looking at all of these things in terms of how character, how we carry ourselves in many ways creates those imbalances, that hotness that I was talking about, and how our acknowledgement of that, making Ebo and committing to change once we've done that work with Ebo, like committing to do things like with anger management classes, I don't know, doing more meditation, redressing harm with people we've harmed, committing to do better and to be better in the world, committing to address our needs with people other than through manipulation. And maybe it's because of something that happened to us when we were young, that we felt defenseless, and now we're on the other side of that and not knowing how to cope beyond doing what was done to us. It could be many reasons for why that happens, right? But the thing is that we examine those things, we look at them for what they are, and we do the work that we need to do, the internal work, to address them so that we can bring more balance into our lives. Because as we talked about, the power of the tongue can literally destroy villages or build kingdoms. So how we treat our tongue may be more than directly connected to how we are emotionally balanced or not, right? So taking care of those emotional imbalances helps to restore that balance and coolness that'll help us to actually build those kingdoms. Hope that answers your question.
Yes, it did. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I have another question.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, this might sound interesting, but whatever. So we kind of look to Oshun for love because she essentially had to embody love and learn to love herself. So could it be the same with Shango, that we look to him for like truth and like the power of the tongue, because like before he ascended to Orisha status, that's something that he himself had to overcome. So like even with like the protection of women, like could that be something that he had to overcome within himself, and that's why he kind of like shows up for that thing?
I actually would agree with that. I would agree with that. I think that's how we make those connections when we receive a reading, or even in classes like this, or when we're making Ebo, even listening to how people pray to the Orisha, right? We're oftentimes hearing exactly what you talked about, right? Someone may mention a pateki, someone may mention a struggle, and how that struggle is resolved through our commitment to change, right? So all of that is connected to what you just said. All of that is connected. So I would not disagree with that. And that's how we start to make those connections with the inner alignment, right? Is to see where the real kind of human qualities of the Orisha are, and how we can relate to those human qualities and define ourself in relationship to them, and where our growth needs are, and our own commitment to our own change for ourselves. So that was fine, Makeba. I don't know what you
Thank
were worried
you.
about.
That makes a lot of sense though. But thank you.
Yep. Be ready to go on to some patakis. Y'all can still, of course, ask
Yes,
questions.
please.
Yeah, I know y'all can ask questions. But Obakoso, I'm going to talk about that first, right? Obakoso. So there are several stories related to Obakoso, and I'm going to ask if anyone has ever heard the Pataki about the king, that the king did not hang. If anyone heard any particular stories about what happened with Shango with this particular Pataki. Anyone have any understanding or heard of any of those stories?
So for me, the version that I heard was like basically he lost his temper over the kingdom, and like the people kind of staged a revolt and tried to hang him, but he just didn't die. That's the version that I heard.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So that's one version. Speaking to some of the things we talked about earlier, right? That's one version. Maybe I'll go into two versions here. One also that I learned from my elders is that Shango had, let me make sure I get this right. Shango had two generals, and they worked with him and they went to battle with him. And those generals were very successful in battle, and threatened to have a better or more broadly accepted reputation to Shango. They were growing in popularity. They were growing in praise from members of people from the Oyo Kingdom, um, and he became jealous of that, and so he set about a plot to destroy, and they were people who he was very close to both of them. And so he set about to destroy them by spreading lies, actually. So he told one of the generals that the other was plotting to kill him, and he told the other the same about the other general. So he did this so that they could distrust one another. He manipulated them into distrusting one another so that they would destroy one another, and he wouldn't have any more competition from either one of them. So when they confronted each other after some talking to each other and some, putting things together and figuring out, no, this is something about this isn't right. And they discovered ultimately that it was Shango who threatened for them to destroy each other. And so upon discovering this, they turned on Shango and revealed that what he did, and exposed him. And he felt such shame for what he had done because he had cared for the men himself, that he paid the ultimate price for his own um, misjudgment and manipulation and all of that. So he paid the ultimate price for that, which we say is Obako, so the king did not hang, but that ultimately he did not continue to rule over the kingdom any longer because of what happened. We don't like to say that what he did, but let's just say that that the Ayan tree, that where he was found, was showed a tragedy that changed Oyo Kingdom forever. So that's one. Another that I've heard is that Shango, again receiving medicines from Osine, wanted to test the limits to how he could bring lightning down from the sky. So he went to this hill, the highest hill in the kingdom, so he could get closest to the sky. And he used these medicines that he was given by Osine to bring lightning down to use as a weapon. And when he did that, he literally used that very weapon to destroy, that ended up destroying Oyo. So he literally killed women and children, killed members of his royal court. Um, you know, and there was fire and mayhem and chaos and fear among the people. And it was, since it was Shango's doing that made that happen, he left, he banished himself out of shame for causing such harm to his people who he loves so dearly. And again, Obakoso, the king did not hang. No one will say that he hung himself, but the Ayantri witnessed a horrible tragedy. So those are the two stories that that talk about the king did not hang. When you hear about Koso, that is a praise name for Shango that says exactly that, the king did not hang, because he is now Shango the Orisha. So he lives on. So again, we see some of the, yeah. Who is that?
Sorry, I was is hello?
Yeah, okay, I hear you. Yeah.
Sorry. And the stories that I've heard about that, the way that like Shango had received Orisha status was by way of Oya like ascending him to that way via like prayer or something along those lines. Is there any truth to that?
That is another kind of shit. Yeah. So that's the thing. Like some of these stories do piece together certain pieces of what happened to Shango. I have also heard the story that it was through Oya's, because of her unique role as the one who has this very particular relationship with Iku, that she was the one that was able to negotiate with Olodumare his ability to become a deified ancestor. But there's also the story that I've seen and heard where because of Shango's rulership and what he was able to establish, the Ayabas established, when they established his rule as his Egungun shrine as Alafin, it, because of his reputation being so great and his feats being considered to be so great, it was the Ayabas, which, you know, you can argue, because it's either way, you can argue that a woman or a feminine energy was the reason why he was titled Obakoso, entitled to be Shango the Orisha. But there was Ayabas who petitioned Olodumare also to the women that I mentioned before who are part of his royal court. And those women have different titles. They're connected to different Orisha, but they all assembled and petitioned to ensure that his reign would not end with his death. So I've heard that as well. So neither one. I don't think either one of those stories are wrong necessarily. So the second, wait, did someone say something? No. Okay, so the second story is these two next two stories deal with Shango and the farm, which is interesting too. So Shango's stories that deal with him coming into wealth through being trustworthy and being humble are also stories that that are a big part of what we hear about when we hear about Shango. And so the story about Shango and the farmer is that Shango, when he came upon hard times at one point in his life, went to his diviners to make Ebo, because he wanted to find how he would find good fortune. And so when he went to them, they made him offer 2 eggs, 2 cola nuts, and but he made this offering: 2 cola nuts, 2 eggs, and may have been 2 arugbo, which are cola nuts. Oh, and 2 cola nuts too. 2 eggs. Oh yeah, 2 cola nuts, 2 eggs, 2 arugbo. And he buried them by a fence on the edge of a farm. And when he was digging to bury the ebo that he was making, where he would hope to find treasure, he found money was buried there already. And so, remembering what he was told by his diviners, he decided not to steal. Even though he was very destitute and needed the money very badly, he knew that that was not his treasure. So he did not touch the treasure, because he knew the treasure would come once he made a bow, and that was not for him to have, because it belonged to someone else. So he finished making his bow there. He never touched the money, but the farmer who owned the farm, who buried the money there, saw Shango there at the time that he was making his ebo. The farmer immediately accused Shango without evidence of stealing his money, because he felt, he's like, well, the guy's sitting right there, of course he stole it, but even though he didn't. So when so Shango went through a terrible trial where all he had was the truth on his side, and his faith in his ebo, and his faith in his diviners, and Olodumare. That's all he had. And so he went to this trial, a stranger to everyone who accused him. And given the circumstances, most people facing that circumstance would have met a worse fate, but he was eventually exonerated and compensated with more money than what he would have gained had he taken the treasure that he found when he buried his ebo. So that is another story about Shango and the farmer, and that goes to Shango's real focus on making sure that people, even when it's hard, tell the truth. Even when it's hard, do the right thing. And you will be compensated far beyond the measure of the thing that you would have had in the short term had you made the wrong choice. So Shango and the gift of the pumpkin. So Shango is very, very closely associated with pumpkins, the same as Oshun. Shango and Oshun are the Orisha that will oftentimes ask a person to use pumpkins or to work with pumpkins, because they are used as symbols for things that are buried, or buried treasure. Right? I mentioned this I think before. So this story involves 16 kings. And so there were 15 kings in Shango. In the 15 kings, Olodumare bestowed gifts to these 15 kings, and Shango was waiting for his turn at 16. But Olodumare worked with Eshu and gave all 15 kings pumpkins. And they were like, what's this? What's pumpkins? They had no idea what this was. They thought that it was like trash. They thought that it was not, they thought that Olodumare was going to bestow them with riches beyond measure, as a gift for good fortune. And so when they saw that it was pumpkins, they decided we don't want these pumpkins. They don't really have anything to do with us. We want something more tangible. But they didn't look inside the pumpkins to see what was there. So Shango patiently waited until the 15 kings received their gifts, and they told Shango, we got this from Olodumare. And so so by that time Olodumare was going to give Shango his gift. But then they all said, you can have these pumpkins. We don't want these. They're not treasures, they're just squashes. So Shango takes the pumpkins that the 15 kings did not want. And of course, when he receives them, he opens them, he sees that since they didn't look inside, they all rejected treasures. So these treasures that were bestowed upon Shango gave him great powers and great abilities, and they were gifts that were unlocked by him that they discarded. So he became very great and powerful based on their rejection of Olodumare's gift. So again, with pumpkins, we learned that pumpkins are things of great mystery. They are things that oftentimes not valued for what they have on the inside. Even though they're pretty on the outside, oftentimes what's on the inside is what counts. And again, it's very clear analogy to me to our own personal beingness, right? If you look at something on the outside and assume there's nothing there, and discount what the person has to offer on the inside, you could be missing out on a great treasure. And so Shango understood that and took that in and gained much more in it, more than he would have had he rejected it. Lots of stories like that across the board with pumpkins, particularly with Oshun and Shango. Those two Orishas in particular give us that idea and understanding a lot. Any questions? We have a few minutes left.
Did Oshun and Shango share a love? Because they seem so similar that they would have fun with each other.
They were great loves. They were legendarily great loves. Oshun was considered to be Shango's favorite wife because she can cook really well in more ways than one.
The Pataki. Yes, I remember. I'm so sorry.
That's okay. That's okay. Yeah.
I have
So
a
yes.
question, Iya.
Yep.
So there, actually, like following on that question, there's a Pataki that I've heard of, but like never been able to find really about Oshun and Shango like living together. And but I think Oshun's diviners had warned her against like being with him because as long as they were together, they didn't have wealth, but when they were apart, they would like be able to be great or something like that. Is there a Pataki like that?
That's I'm sorry, let me 1 second. I'm trying to think. I'm trying to put together what you're saying about them, about their diviners saying that they would be wealthy, but not together. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, essentially, I think it's the path where like Oshun loses her wealth and her mind as well, and I remember roughly like I don't know, I think Oshun and Shango were like living together and like their love was great, but they weren't able to like amass wealth together or something like that.
That's not one I'm familiar with. There are several patakis with Oshun where she either like you say, loses her riches, loses her mind, loses her status, loses her beauty even. And her Legba is generally in many of those her rescuer. I mentioned one of them not too long ago when I mentioned the Pataki where he fed her castrated goat for the first time. So, because normally there's So I'm trying to think of what the message would be for that in relationship to Shango and Oshun. So yeah, so I'm not familiar with that one.
Okay, it might honestly be a story that like somebody made up about it, because what I received from it was like that you cannot let a man drive you crazy, essentially, because that was like the premise of why she lost everything, because she was so worried about providing for Shango, I guess. But yeah.
Okay. Okay. All right. Maybe we can ask about that one. Maybe that's something that an elder may know about. Maybe we can ask about that. Okay. I can see your point now though about not letting not being limited by what you do for others, or I can actually see that in terms of Obara and O'Shea, in terms of giving away so much of yourself that you don't have anything for yourself. And that would be very much in alignment with an Obara, Apataki and Obara. So that's probably an Apataki and Obara, or Obada or an O'Shea or something like that. So that's it sounds like it would be in one of those two Odu, given the nature of what you just said. Now, when you put it that way, I can totally see that, but I'm not familiar with that particular one.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. All right. So any other questions or reflections or thoughts that anyone would like to share? I appreciate everyone's questions and so far. Yes, Katie. Hey, how you doing?
This just taught me that I need to go take a nice cool ice bath or something. Every time we have these classes, it's like something happens in the week and then the lesson is in the class. So I'm like, I had this 3 days earlier, and this lunar eclipse has been grabbed me tight. So
along
I'm
with the
just
retrograde.
reflecting. Yeah, my students, it's just like we're speaking 3 different languages, and I'm just like,
very active retrograde, and Roz and I were just talking. It's a very active retrograde.
yes,
Anyway.
like
It's a
all
few
day today. I'm
retrogrades
like,
happening.
I'm speaking English,
Yeah.
right? Like I'm speaking
Exactly,
English,
Michaela.
you're speaking English. Why are we not understanding each other? Like, so yeah, it's been rough.
Yep. We gotta lay low and do as good of a job as listening as we can. But yeah, you're right. I think it's more than one retrograde happening at once, maybe 2 or 3.
Yeah, Saturn's retrograding too, and I'm tired.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. So so yeah, we're talking about communication and how communication can and we're dealing with a retrograde. So I guess I can be instructive to all, including me. Careful how we use our tongue during the retrograde, because illusions abound, you know. Katie's like, yeah.
I mean, it's work has been so amplified, and I'm just like, I know, like, this is reality, right? Like, why does nobody acting? I don't know. It's just so weird. So I'm definitely going to be minding my tongue. The microaggression has become like a huge thing to like HR is contacting me. It's just a lot. So I'm just really trying to tiptoe and lay low. That's all.
That's all.
And
That's all
stay
we can
cool.
do. Yeah,
So
that's all we
maybe
can
that's
do.
for somebody too.
Right. Right. That's what's up. That's what's up. How can someone give an offering to Shango? So I normally prescribe offerings through readings and or, divining directly with the Orisha if something is necessary to give. And, I've been in different places. I've been to I was at an Elay where you basically just gave Ebo all the time. There was a schedule for when you would give Ebo, and you would give Ebo once a month to this Orisha, once a month to that Orisha, once a month to that Orisha. And it really, because I've been in different types of houses that had different types of structures, and that structure, was interesting because it gave me a really regular, opportunity to engage with Orisha and to make and to get to know their nature and get to know how to cook for the Orisha, all of that. So but the training I have now in the house I am in now, we do it through reading. So if someone needs to consult with Shango, and wants to make an offering to Shango, I'd be more than happy to facilitate that. But I would start by asking if this is the best time for that to happen, and what they would like to accept. So that's why it's really best to work with an elder, because if you have something you want to give, but you're not sure what it is that the Orisha accepts, you want to be respectful of the ways that Orisha works, so that when you make the offering, your offering aligns with what that Orisha would want to receive. So for Shango, if someone wanted to make an offering to Shango, you can speak with me or you can speak with another elder. If for those of you who you have other elders, so I know some people have other elders too, and we would work with that Orisha on your behalf. I generally don't do for Shango in nature. Some Orisha you can do offerings in nature, some you cannot, not easily. Um, and so generally, unless it's really necessary and asked for, I generally would just do so at the shrine here at my home. That's the easiest way to do it for Shango, given what Shango is in nature, unless there's a specific place that Shango asks for it to be taken or to be received. I hope that answers your question, Dashe.
It did. It did.
All right. You're welcome. Okay. So you guys asked some really good questions this week. Um, um, I'm actually getting an opportunity to remind myself of different resources and stuff, because I would have an inkling. It's like, oh, what about this? I forgot, maybe this would be a good thing to talk about. And so I have I I generally come with some books that you guys can check out. I have another one that I remembered that would be actually, it's a really good resource. Um, this is another book by Baba John Mason. It's a really, really, really excellent, excellent book. Um, Highly recommended. I think this is the book on the worship of Shango, if I may say so myself. I think it is the book. There are very few books that can rival it in terms of documentation, in terms of research, in terms of knowledge that he imparts, in terms of connecting the different diasporic and continent-based worships of Shango, and making the connections for how the Oyo kingdoms, something he does in that book. I haven't read the whole thing in a while, but the one thing he does really beautifully is he connects what we understand to be the Oyo Empire and how it was manifested through diasporic traditions in Lukumi, Shango Baptist, Candomblé, you name it, Trinidad, Trinidadian practice, all of it. So it's a really, really, really well done book. It's a very thick book, but it's a very, very well done book. So if anyone wants to dig deep into the study and knowledge of Shango specifically, that is to me the book to go to. I don't think there's another book that rivals it in terms of just literally just focusing on Shango as Orisha, and as Alafni. So consider that a resource for yourself. Okay, any other questions? Yes, Isai?
Um, Me and my dad were wondering if, so we were wondering how many Orisha do does a person get when they're initiated, and we were wondering if that's a secret or not.
It's not necessarily a secret. Not necessarily. Um, it depends on who you're initiated to. Not everybody receives every Orisha of the main ones. Oshun, Shango, Yamanja, Oya, Alekba, and the warriors. And Shan, who else did I miss? I missed Oshun, Oya, Shango, Yamanja, Alekba and the warriors, Obatala. Um, So it's no secret. People of Yemanja do not receive Oya, neither do people of yeah, neither do people of Shango, I believe. But definitely people of Oya do not, people of Yemanja do not receive Oya. So that is one Orisha that most other folks who are initiated receive, but not people of Oya. I mean, not people of Yemanja. And if you're a child of Oya, you do not receive Yemanja. Sure, sure, Dashe, I can do that. Um, does that answer your question?
Yeah, I was gonna ask, is the reason for, I don't know how to word this. Is the reason for like when somebody is a child of Yemaya